Hi, I'm Shamira Aini binti Armin 221220824. We provided about the All Greens franchise in New Zealand. We made the decision to research the data set that details sales data for All Greens.
I am Siti Nur Syafiqah Adila binti Meramzul, cut matrix number 2212228884. I'm going to explain about simple linear regression analysis. The first one is scatter plot. Scatter plot is a set of points plot on a horizontal and vertical axis. Scatter plots are important in statistics because they can show the extent of correlation. As you can see on the slide, the scatter plot is from x1 until x5. X1 is correlation coefficient. From the table, we can see that all the correlation R value for variable x is positive correlation. Besides, we can see that relationship between x1 and y has a strong positive correlation since the value is close to +1. Even though other data are also positive, we can see that x1 is the closest one compared to another variable. Next one is general form of SLR equation. Based on the slide, it shows the SLR equation x1 until x5. As we can see, the first one is x1. The SLR equation for the x1 is y. The answer is 2.577 plus 85.388. Next is x2. So the SLR equation for the x2 is y. The answer is negative 81.504 plus 0.9499. Next one is x3. So the SLR equation for the x3 is y. The answer is negative 90.148 plus 46.509. Next is x4. So the SLR equation for the x4 is y. The answer is negative 58.823 plus 35.635. Next is x5. So the SLR equation for the x5 is y. The answer is 563.592 plus negative 34.787.
My name is Regression. I will talk about 3.4 testing regression slope B1. The p-value for x1 is lesser than 0.01, which means it's lesser than alpha 0.05. Therefore, it's not rejected. That proof that variable x1 has a significant relationship with variable y.
My name is Sulanisha Anapurupan Thomas. 3.5 coefficient of determination. From the model summary, it can be observed the coefficient of determination is 0.914. This means the simple linear regression model explains 91.4% of variation in annual net sales of $1,000.
This model overfit since its estimated standard error is 17.649 less than the R-square change of 0.993. Due to statistic VIF equal to 1.000 and collinearity tolerance, multi-collinearity develops. This is because of incorrect dummy variable usage in the regression version and a excessive correlation between two or more ambiguous variables.
3.8 Model comparison. From the model summary, it can be observed the multiple regression model explains 99.3% of variation in annual net sales. When factoring the additional number of independent variables, the multiple regression model explains 92.2% of variation in annual net sales. 3.9 The best model fitted. The simple linear regression model explains 91.4% of variation in annual sales, while the multiple regression model explains 92.2% of variation in annual sales using 5 variables. This indicates the simple linear regression model is better than the multiple linear regression as it explains most of the variation in annual sales using 1 variable. The simple linear regression model has the advantage of simplicity, while the multiple linear regression model has the drawbacks of possibly having multi-collinearity and using variables that have no effect on annual sales.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Siti Nurisa Farzana. I am from 1021C. I want to present the topic prediction based on the best model, and the answer for the predicted value is the same as standardized predicted value, which is 0.997, and it's called as significant. The second one is the annual net sales is expected to increase by $16,202 for each franchise store. The conclusion we can get from the hypothesis testing is the hash null hypothesis was rejected by the 1-tail and 2-tail because of the p minus value is less than a. Multiple linear regression is too simple to implement and easier to interpret the output, sufficient the relationship between a predicted variable and the response. And if you know the relationship between the independent and dependent variable, this will give you the best way to use because of less complexity to compare anyways in regression analysis. And the second last is disadvantage of MLR. Multiple linear regression is not really good at explaining the relationship between the mean of the dependent and variable and the independent variable. can become a really risk if you do not know which part is not complete. And the last one is, in contrast, linear regression assumes a linear relationship between the dependent and independent variable. This means it assumes that there is a straight line relationship between them, and it assumes independence between attributes will give the disadvantage to you if you're using the multiple of linear regression. Thank you.
As a conclusion, profitability had no discernible influence on the delay audit. According to the findings of a double linear regression test, multiple regression analysis based on the results of the double linear regression test reveals that solvability has a significant impact on the daily audit.